Good Wednesday evening, listeners, and welcome to another edition of this commentary here on Conversations of a Sister. I thank you for tuning in tonight on this hot Wednesday evening here on the East Coast. You know, I've been losing my internet connection off and on all day. That our grid lines are heavy here in the tri-state or I have been in and out of I won't. It's already telling me that my connection is unstable. So, and because I'm not in my home office, I am coming to you live from another area. This week's commentary, I want to talk about it. It came from one of my male listeners, and I was impressed because I usually get emails and questions from women, um, and I did, but this particular email stood out to me not only because it was from a man. I don't want to be biased here on Conversations of a Sister, and I enjoyed the dialogue that I was having with him. So let's dive right into it because tonight's conversation is why communication should not be avoided. Tonight's conversation, why communication should not be avoided. And in this particular email, the gentleman said to me that he recently asked, or him and his girlfriend recently agreed to move in together. I think he said it was right after Mother's Day, they decided to move in together. He said what he was not ready for was the constant conversation when he came home from work. He was not ready for that. He was not ready for someone being there, ready and willing to have conversation. He did tell me that she worked from home. He did tell me that, he dreaded going home because she was always ready to talk. Well, that's when he said to me, can communication be avoided? He said, because I started parking in the driveway before I even walked in the house. And when she noticed it and was having an issue with it, he said, I started parking down the street or around the corner. So I said to him, what is it? Is it the bombardment of questions? Is it just that you can't take communicating with her? Like, what is it that you want to convey to me? Because I'm going to tell you or advise you to convey it to her. And then that's when he said, how come communication just can't be avoided? You can't avoid communication. Now, while you don't always know what the other person is thinking about, you will know what is on their mind when they walk through the door because, they're going to spill it to you, and women can't talk. By nature, we do want to talk. And if we have an issue, we want to talk to the person who is closest to us. So I take it like this, and this is what I said to him. You can't avoid communication with her. And if you want to avoid communication with her because you feel as though she's talking too much, that's something that you need to tell her. Like, oh my God, it's like men and women. Stop being phony in your relationship. Start being honest and open and sharing. Don't be afraid to share. Don't be afraid to communicate. Communication is very important. Without communication, for me, a relationship will not last. You have to be communicating, even when it's uncomfortable. And if you need 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 20 minutes when you walk into the home, this is something that you need to tell her. Even if it's not even about, you telling her so much, it's about how you tell her. You could say something like, baby, I'm not used to this. I'm not saying that I don't like it. I'm not saying that I regret it. I'm saying I'm not used to it. And what I mean by that is I'm not used to having someone talk to me as soon as I, come in the house. I need at least 10 minutes. I need at least 15, 20 minutes. Just give me a minute to regroup. And even if you see me sitting in the car, it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm on the telephone. It just means that I need time to gather myself before I actually, walk in the house. Now, in that same token and with that same energy, you have to also be prepared and be ready to accept it if she does it to you. Because maybe at some point she will also feel that same way, but you have to be prepared if that's also done to you. Because again, communication should not be avoided. That's just like living with someone and walking around the house and just not talking to them. At some point, you should communicate how you feel, even if it's uncomfortable or upsetting. Communication should not by any means be avoided. You have to communicate. I think that communication makes for a healthy relationship, and you're able to grow based upon what you know and what you know about each other. So it should never be avoided. You asked her to move in with you. You both decided to live together. And this is a part of the getting to know each other period under one roof. Now, mind you, you're not married. So you told me you guys decided to give it a test run before you do get married. So can you imagine if you were married? Then how would you feel if you were married? Would you be like, oh my God, I'm married and I have to go home and she's going to talk me to death? Would you, like, how would you feel? For me, when you are living with someone in a relationship, um, you're not legally bound by law. So that means that at any time, either one of you can move out. I don't know whose name is on the lease, but there is no commitment with one staying over the other because you're not married. And for the same token, you can be married and the same thing can happen. So how do you want to build something healthy? You want to build something healthy by communicating. I remember when my brother was in a relationship and he used to constantly call me and he would be yelling at me about his frustrations with what his girlfriend at the time, what she was doing, to him, with him in situations. And I could hear the frustration in his voice. He was always yelling, he was always frustrated. And I said to him, can I ask you a question? Why are you not telling her? Why are you talking and yelling at me as if you're in a relationship with me? You're not in a relationship with me, sweetie. You're in a relationship with her. You should be communicating with her. You should be telling her. And he didn't want to do it. He wouldn't do it. He told me that they very barely had arguments. They barely had, disagreements. And I thought to myself, so your relationship is fake. So you have a fake relationship because you have all this frustration built up by things that she does. And instead of you telling her, you call and you tell me, and you basically take it out on me, how you're feeling the frustration for what you can't tell her. And I was like, that's not a healthy relationship. And he was going to marry this girl. And I was like, oh God, I hope not. How are you going to marry someone that you have to communicate with? When you are in a relationship, and I've said this before, it is important, it's crucial that you see that person in every season. You have to try and see that person in every season so that you know the person and is not so much shocked by what they do. This way, like if something is off, if a pattern is off, or if something that they used to do is off, you're going to know that it's off because you know the person. You know the person well enough to know that it's off. Communication should not be avoided. If you are avoiding communication, then you need to question that relationship because the relationship is not authentic. You need to be your authentic self in a relationship. Now, mind you, these two people are now living together. So they're going to know each other in and out. So are you going to walk around and avoid communication? Are you going to be phony? Are you going to walk in the house and just instead of listening, you're going to tune her out? I don't think that's cool. I think that you need to communicate how you feel. If you need 10 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever you need to communicate that. Just as you would communicate that with all of your other needs, you need to make this a top priority. And you need to be clear in your understanding so that nothing is misinterpreted. Because as women, we can misinterpret things and we can misinterpret things quick. I don't know her personality, so I can't say that this is something that she would do. But what I'm saying is, you want your delivery to be correct because communication cannot be avoided. Communication should not be avoided. You need to communicate with the person, whether it's good, bad, ugly, or indifferent, in order to give them the opportunity to make a choice and a decision to move according to what you communicate. Because if you walk in the house and you say, I don't want you to talk right away, then that's something that she's going to adjust to because this is something that you need. But then on those days that you come in and you want to talk to her right away, she might say to you, oh, so you don't need 10 minutes today? Or your 10 minutes is not up? So, whatever you need to communicate, communicate it clearly, but by all means, communicate. Don't just tell me she talked too much when we come in when I come in the house. It's something that you have to communicate. And I said to him, does she talk too much all the time? He said no. He said she talks. He said, you know how you women are. I didn't think that was fair. He said, but she talks. And when I come home, she wants to talk to me. How was your day? That's a normal question. However, maybe you need more time before you answer her question. You could say to her, my day was good. I'm going to tell you about it, but I need 10 minutes. Give me 10 minutes. Let me run to the bathroom. No, she shouldn't follow you to the bathroom, but you could say, give me 20 minutes. Let me just change my clothes. I'll be right back. Just give me whatever it is you need, communicate it because she should know that she doesn't necessarily get on your nerves, but you don't want to be bombarded the minute you walk through the door. And I get that because, in the email, he said to me, you know, you don't know what it's like until you've actually lived alone. And he said, and don't get me wrong, he said, I loved her. He said, I love her. And I felt like us moving in together was a great idea. I just wasn't expecting, he said, so much talking, so much communicating. He was like, we communicate when we go to bed, we're talking. We're constantly talking, he said, throughout the night. So how would he feel if she started getting phone calls? How would he feel? How would he feel if she started taking phone calls at certain times of the night when it should be his time? I think that these are things that needs to be discussed because if she bring other things into the time that you feel should be yours for communicating, it's something that you're not going to like. So I think that you need to open the doors of communication on all levels. And I've had this conversation so many times in commentary. I've always talked about communicating because without communication, you have no relationship. If you cannot communicate with the person that you love and respect in a relationship, then you have to question your relationship because you're like, oh my God, I can't even have a conversation with her. And if you can't have a conversation with her, that's not good. So, how are you going to work toward that? And he also said to me, I don't want her to take what I'm saying wrong. So, in order for her to not take what you're saying wrong, you want to make sure that your delivery is stellar. Because, sometimes we can get lost in the delivery, and you don't want to do that because you're living with this person. It's not like they're going home and you're going home. You're both now under one roof. So, you want to make sure that under this one roof, you have harmony. I'm not saying it's going to always be harmonic. I'm not saying it's going to always be open communication, because all relationships have its ups and downs, their fights, their discord. But I think what's important is when you can come together and discuss what took place when you're ready, because that's how it should be. I don't want you to think that you're going to shut everything down by telling her what you need, because that's something that you should be able to do in a relationship. If you can't, then that's a problem. So it's all about your delivery. You want to be careful with your delivery. You want to be able to say, okay, I just got home. I know that sometimes, like if I'm on the phone and I just get home and I'm talking to someone, I'm gonna say, give me 10 minutes, let me get settled, and I'm gonna call you back. Or give me 15 minutes, I'm gonna do whatever, and then I'm gonna call you back. Because, I live alone. And when I walk in the door, I like the fact that there's nobody here. And just by thinking about some of his questions, I thought to myself, well, suppose I was in that situation, it would be kind of different. And I was talking to one of my friends, I think it was the other night, and they were like, I like living alone. They were like, even if I got married, I don't think that I want to share a bed with that person. Now, I kind of thought that was weird, but that's what they said. They've been so used to sleeping alone for so long, they said they don't think that they would want to share a bed. And they said that no matter how much somebody comes to visit you, you can't wait for that person to go home because you like being alone. Some people like company. There's nothing wrong with having company, but you can't wait for that person to go home. Well, what do you do when that company is permanent? When you have that company permanently, how do you adjust to that? You have to figure it out, because you don't really know someone until you live with them. So now you have to figure out the permanent company. This person said to me, I've been so used to not sharing my bed. I don't think I ever want to share a bed again. I don't think that I ever want to share a bed with someone, she said. And she said, even if I got married, I think that I would want us to have separate rooms. I thought that was pretty that was I thought that was pretty deep. However, I understand. I think the older you get, the harder it is to kind of like have someone there. I think that it is an adjustment. It's an adjustment that you make. I don't know if love is enough to jump over that hurdle. Maybe for some it is, but I think that it is all about the adjustment that you would actually you would actually make. I remember when my girlfriend got married to her husband. They combined two households, and they talked about how hard it was, how difficult it was, because they had, I think she said, together they had something like 8 to 10 televisions. They had like several computers. They had a double of everything because they were combining two households, and they would kind of clash because, he wanted to keep his stuff, she wanted to keep some of her stuff. So they clashed because they had to figure out how they were going to make it work. But, at the end of the day, he wound up getting rid of most of his things, because a lot of his things were outdated, and a lot of his things he was able to sell. So he didn't mind letting go of it, because at the end of the day, it's all about compromise. So he had to compromise and let go of some of his things as they came together as husband and wife, and they were actually living together. So when you move in with someone, you have to combine both worlds. And you're talking about two different tastes, two individuals with two different tastes. I had this friend of mine, his taste is definitely different than mine. He, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, was it a couple of weeks ago, a month ago, he purchased a recliner. He purchased a two-seat recliner. You know the recliners that you get in, you sit in, you put your feet up. He had it there. He had two. In the middle was the console where you put the drinks. And he sent me a text message saying, I bought this recliner with you in mind because we're gonna sit in this recliner, we're gonna watch our movies, and in my mind, I was like, the devil is a liar. I'm not reclining. I'm not reclining and just sitting back to watch movies, but that's what he thought. And I was like, I hate recliners. Recliners they're not my thing. When I see a recliner, I think about somebody ready to retire and just recline. You are just ready to sit there for life. And I was like, that's not me. I didn't say that to him, of course, but in his mind, that's what he was thinking. And in my mind, I was like, oh my God. So if I hooked up with him and we lived together, I would have to live with these recliners. And I would have him put them in his room, his man cave, or whatever, because that's not something that I would want to live with. So these are two different opinions that would have to come together. And of course, it would have to be communicated. So when you think about things like that, you think about, oh my God, I can kind of relate to what he's talking about, because you have two different ideologies of what certain things should be. His ideology of chilling, and don't get me wrong, I don't mind chilling sometimes, watching a movie, not necessarily reclining, but I don't mind doing that, but not all the time. I'm too busy and too active. So that would be almost like a really settling in stage. And that's the impression I got from him when I saw the recliners. I was like, oh my God, I don't think he's ever going to get up. He had a refrigerator, like he was set. And in my mind, I'm like, that's not something I would want to do. I just would not want to recline or think about chilling for the weekend in a recliner. I wouldn't want to do that. I want to remain active for as long as I can. So that's something that I would definitely have to communicate to someone. Not that I'm moving in with that person, but I'm just saying this was his thought. So because this is his thought, that is something that I would have to communicate. So I say that to say a person can have a thought in their head and they're not going to be clear on that thought until you communicate otherwise. So in her head, she's thinking, I can't wait for him to get home because I work from home, because I can't wait to talk to him. I don't know, maybe she misses him throughout the day and she wants to talk to him. Maybe he should call her more during the day, and then when he get home at night, she'll know what to look forward to and she won't be so pressing. There are so many ways to work it out, but the one way you don't want to work it out is to not communicate it. It is very important to communicate. Communication is key. My major was communication in college, and I remember my college sweetheart, the guy that I was dating. If I wasn't talking to him, he would come to my dorm room at night, and he would be like, "Talk to me." I wouldn't want to talk to him. He'd be like, "Come on, baby, talk to me. Come on, Miss Communication Major. Let's communicate. Talk to me." He would force me to communicate. And at the time, it wasn't annoying. I was impressed with the fact that he was willing to try. And according to a lot of people that I speak to, they say that men don't like to communicate. Men don't like to communicate. Some men don't like confrontation. So when there is an effort being made, that is a plus. So I'm sure when you tell your moving girlfriend that you need 5, 10, 15 minutes when you come in the house, she's going to appreciate that because you're communicating a need to her. You are making an effort to communicate what you need. And that is important. I know I would be impressed. I like when a man communicates. I like when a man is open and honest. You don't get that a lot in relationships. So when you do get it, it's something that you should appreciate. Because I have a lot of women who email me talking about how they broke up with someone because the communication was poor. They were inconsistent. They were this. Like I hear it all the time. Communication in a relationship is key. If you have communication, you have a chance at a future. And hopefully, I know he said that they'll probably be married in the future. Hopefully, this will better prepare them for when they are. Because I don't think that anybody should be surprised when they live with someone after marriage because you have to know what it is you're in for. You have to know what it is that you're getting. And I think that when two people stop communicating, the relationship is doomed to fail because you're just not communicating. You're not talking like you used to talk. And you need to talk because communication is key. And if communication breaks down, the entire relationship does. So don't start it. Don't go into the relationship with it. Nip it in the butt now. Communicate now. Do it now. Tell her now. And I appreciate the fact that I got an email from a man. A lot of my emails come from women. I want to hear from you two fellas. My email is conversationsofassister@gmail.com. If you send them to readyvitalproductioncompany.com, I don't know if they're being diverted. I guess I would have to ask my assistant Raven. I don't think so. But you can email me direct at conversationsofassister@gmail.com. If I'm not mistaken, I think that that email is also connected to the blog. I don't know, but a lot of my readers and listeners they can figure out where to email me because I do receive those emails. I picked this one because it was from a gentleman, and I don't hear from my male listeners and readers a lot, and I appreciate you. You know, it's about relationships, conversations of a sister. And we can't have relationships without men. So you're included too. Feel free to reach out. And don't be emailing me with no nonsense. Have some real issues for me to talk about. Because if it's garbage, if it's nonsense, if it's a holler, I'm not going to address that. That I am not going to address. But I do want you to know that I appreciate you. I appreciate all of you alike. Like and subscribe Conversations of a Sister here on my YouTube channel. And I think I am out of time. The conversation's been real, the conversation's been great, and I'm glad that I always have an opportunity to look at things from other people's perspective. And that's what those emails give me. Until next week, I thank you for tuning in. Have a great week and try to stay cool.